In 1861, it took 3 days just to reach the shores of Muskoka from Toronto. The land was wild and largely untouched. For two young men from Toronto, James Bain and John Campbell, the land beckoned. Exploring these northern lakes by boat, Bain and Campbell were captivated by the beauty of the surroundings. They vowed to return the next year, only this time in the company of friends. Thus was born the Muskoka Club, a group of companions who set up camp summer after summer on Lake Joseph. They felt nature fulfilled their needs. It was nature they celebrated. These men had no idea of the trend they were initiating. But in the history of Muskoka, Bain and Campbell are acknowledged as the region's first tourists.
No person shall be located for any land under this Act or said regulations unless such person is of the age
Come
of
1868, the new Canadian government's promise of free land helped boost settlement. But thin soil and impenetrable rock were the source of much frustration, leading one settler to remark, "I've known instances where a mound of earth has been sought for and looked upon as a treasure." Agriculture had drawn immigrants to Muskoka, but had proven to be a bust. Just establishing a home in the bush was a trial. Charles and Fanny Minette arrived in Muskoka in the 1860s and eventually opened Cleveland's House, one of the few grand hotels still in operation. Their grandson, Bill Minette, still summers here.
World of me, I can't imagine what the feelings might be when you came up here and arrived on the shore of a lake like this with the trees right down to the shore. Look at the shoreline over there. Imagine coming in there with nothing, not an even place to land. I don't know how they did it. I have tremendous admiration of these people, how they ever persuaded themselves to come up into this backwoods, so to speak.
The lumber trade came and went. But it was Alexander Peter Coburn, founder of the Muskoka Navigation Company, who envisioned Muskoka's long-term future, tourism. Reckoning transportation was vital to people exploring the region, Coburn expanded his steamboat service and worked tirelessly to expose Muskoka to the world. Using his political clout as an MPP, he convinced the government to connect by locks Lake Muskoka to Lakes Rosseau and Joseph in the early 1870s, clearing the way for increased traffic in the region, traffic that he serviced with his steamers. Perhaps Coburn's shining achievement was convincing entrepreneur William H. Pratt to leave booming New York City for this modest hamlet on Lake Rosseau. Pratt had a hunch that people would revel in the isolation of a resort in the wilderness. In 1870, he opened Rosseau House, better known as Pratts. Less than 10 years after Bain and Campbell's inaugural journey, Muskoka's first summer resort was born. Pratt's timing couldn't have been better. The first wave of visitors, men mainly, came to fish and hunt in hopes of toughening up and reviving their primitive selves.
Men come attenuated and return robust, whilst the doctor declares that not a symptom of ennui or even low spirits is to be found in camp. Perhaps it is the bill of fare for the camp breakfast: broiled trout, roast porcupine, venison steaks, and stewed duck, with bread, coffee, and the usual accompaniments.
They were convinced a trip to the wilds would shake off the doldrums of modern living. Groups like the Solid Comfort Club and Sharon's Social Fishing Club originally set up camps at Tondern Island on Lake Muskoka. At the same time, Edward Prowse was laying the foundation of the Beaumaris Temperance Hotel. Though other settlers had been taking in occasional roomers for an evening, or selling them supplies, hoteliers they weren't. That is, until it became profitable. When Pratts burned to the ground in 1883, other hotels were well underway. The resorts of Summit House, Windermere, Monteith's, Prospect House, and Cleveland's all emerged during this period. Tourism was no longer on the horizon. It had arrived. The city had discovered Muskoka. In the northern United States, cities were going through a period of mass industrialization.
In Pittsburgh, every street appears to end in a huge black cloud. By day, there's smoke, 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 everywhere smoke. By night, it's hell with the lid off.
The Iron City was driving the nation's industrial machine. The momentum of progress was charging ahead. It was an economic boom time, but making money was a tiring business. People were feeling overworked, overwhelmed, over-civilized, some would call it. The nervous exhaustion was referred to as brain fag. For the sake of sanity, the vacation, formerly an extravagance, suddenly became a necessity. Recreation became a therapy, best indulged far from the urban enclosure. This remedy became known as a rest cure in a canoe. Drawn here by advertisements proclaiming Muskoka as an infallible healer, the region became an escapist's mecca. Many guests at Beaumaris came just for the soft water and the absence of lime salts in the lake. So therapeutic was Muskoka that the Gravenhurst Cottage Sanatorium became the summer home for hundreds of people suffering from tuberculosis. Much like the first wave of sportsmen, people wanted to reaffirm their connection with the outdoors. They needed to slow down and to cast off the frantic pace of city life. Daily, 6 rail cars filed into the Muskoka Wharf at Gravenhurst, and then went on to Bala and McTier. Guests arrived at the hotels by steamer, laden with trunks, and stayed for months on end. Between 1896 and the outset of the Great War, Muskoka enjoyed its golden era. It was one of the premier summer destinations in North America. Over 100 resorts and hotels dotted the Muskoka Lakes during this period, accommodating upwards of 5,000 people a week. Up and down the lakes, resorts catered to all tastes, from the good-natured revelry enjoyed at Prospect House in Port Sandfield to Lambert Love's Elgin House, where drinking and gaming were forbidden. Over on Lake Rosseau, Windermere House attracted a dignified clientele. While on Lake Muskoka, Beaumaris drew such a large migration from the Iron City every summer, it inspired the name Little Pittsburgh. Steamers plied the waterways, depositing people, supplies, and the daily post at various resorts.
Felt sorry for the new arrivals as the entire hotel turned out to look and to pass comment. The boys to look over the girls, and the girls, of course, to take stock of the new male prospects.
Tourism was driving the region's economy. Overflow didn't impede people from coming. Measures were taken to accommodate. Muskoka was the place to be. But with such a short season and so much competition, owners eagerly trumpeted the glories of their lodgings.
Magnificent elevation overlooking Lake Rosseau, and for natural beauty the scenery and surroundings are unsurpassed at Windermere.
At Prospect House, you'll find a long stretch of sandy beach for bathing, good tennis grounds, a billiard room, and a large hall for amusements.
Located in Rosseau, Monteith House boasts an impressive ballroom for the enjoyment of its guests.
At Maplehurst, table and sanitary arrangements are unexcelled.
I tell you, Summit House is the largest and most attractive hotel in all Muskoka.
Each hotel was a distinctive addition to Muskoka's landscape. But running the operation was much the same for all owners, whether preparing for summer or running at full capacity. Summer days held endless choices of recreation.
After breakfast, horseback riding. I must then choose between badminton with Harriet or tennis with Mr. Bailey. then off for a swim, and then lunch with my dear aunt, whom I've neglected long enough. Arthur and Charlotte want to paddle to some islands this afternoon, but I think preparing a costume for the masquerade tonight would be just as much fun.
Regattas, pageants, and other sporting events served as social gatherings, though rivalries underscored the competition felt between the various hotels. The resorts offered every comfort and convenience. The social activity was vibrant, and the landscape entrancing. So strong was the bond people established with Muskoka each summer that another community began developing around the hotels, cottagers. Enjoying the privacy of their own residence, they were still conveniently hooked into the entertaining comings and goings. What more could people possibly need? Much more, in the eyes of some. Much more, in the corporate eyes of the Muskoka Lakes Navigation and Hotel Company.
Every comfort that modern civilization can give us is found in this great lodge that rises in the midst of a romantic and primeval world. Come the turn of the century, the Royal Muskoka introduced the luxury hotel to the region. The Royal Muskoka was the place to be. Distinguished guests filled the hotel from the day it opened its doors in 1901 till the day it burned to the ground in 1952. Dignitaries and industrial moguls frequented the Royal. Even Hollywood appeared. Prime Minister Sir Robert Borden had to cut short a vacation and rush back to Ottawa in 1914 when the war was declared. And high-profile flying ace Billy Bishop ran a personal air service between Toronto and the hotel.
I remember walking up from the dock, and the path was lined with Chinese lanterns. All the service staff wore white coats, and a string quartet always seemed to be playing in the lounge or in the rotunda. It was very special visiting the Royal.
The Royal Muskoka did not merely introduce the luxury hotel to the region. It changed the character of a vacation in Muskoka. For most, Muskoka represented an escape to the wilderness. However, for the guests registered at the Royal, the accent on opulence and refinement nudged the romantic experience of the wilds into the shadows. Being corporate-owned, some felt the Royal lacked the casual familiarity of the family-owned operation. Still, it represented status for the half-century it survived. But like many of the resorts, it was to suffer come 1914. During the First World War, a somber mood descended on Muskoka. The traditional summer getaway stopped for some. When the war finally drew to a close, an effervescent mood swept the country. An age of optimism was ushered in, and crowds returned to the region. As the League of Nations forged a global alliance, feelings of an international brotherhood grew. People sought new ideas, new beliefs. In Muskoka, a unique organization appeared. The Epworth Inn on Tobin's Island, later called Wigwassan Lodge, became home to the Canadian Chautauqua Institute, better known as the Muskoka Assembly. The Assembly was founded by Charles Sinclair Applegath, a Methodist minister from Port Hope. It was dedicated to spiritual exploration and learning. But at the heart of the agenda was an aspiration to promote a budding Canadian culture. Drawing inspiration from Thomas Jefferson's Monticello, Applegath spruced up the facade of the old Waskada Lodge, giving it more of a stately and welcoming feel. But it was the Assembly's dedication to culture that attracted visitors. Visitors that included writers, performers, and mystics. Classes and performances were held outdoors. The morning was devoted to education, the afternoon to recreation, and the evening to entertainment. Renowned Canadian writers Bliss Carman, E.J. Pratt, Wilson MacDonald, Charles G.D. Roberts, and Gilbert Parker were but a few of the prominent literary figures who attended the Assembly. Often, they would provide lectures at surrounding resorts. Poet Dorothy Livesey explored ideas of theosophy and romanticism during her stay. The serenity of Tobin's Island provided an inspired backdrop as she and her friends ventured to nearby islands to blueberry pick in the nude. Other notable guests included Chief War Eagle, who enthralled everyone with his legends. Princess Rami Hadair of Damascus provided dramatic interpretations of life in Syria during biblical times. But it was the historical pageants celebrating the evolving history of Canada that reveal an organization ahead of its time. Unfortunately, the directors of the Assembly could not contend with an economy cast into the Depression. By the time it closed its doors in 1932, the Muskoka Assembly had drawn thousands to Tobin's Island. It was understood that anxiety was checked at Muskoka Wharf. Having boarded the steamer, the vacation had begun, and as far as the rest of the world was concerned, you were incommunicado. That is, until the automobile came along. Vacations would never be the same. Suddenly, people were mobile. Booking guests for the entire summer was unlikely. Now, owners were pleased if people stayed for a week.
Almost overnight, the operation of the hotel changed, from greeting the boat to having someone in the office the whole time, just in case someone came in by automobile.
The automobile not only drove out Muskoka's gentler pace, it dragged in goldenrod on its tire treads, the curse of hay fever sufferers. The 20s were a time of change. In Muskoka, change could be summed up in one word: Bigwin.
If an owner wanted to succeed, he had to get out and work. It wasn't always the most clever person that got ahead. It was the person who worked the hardest, the longest hours, kept at it when the other guys had to go home and go to bed. Anything less than the best, he wasn't interested in.
He was Charles Orlando Shaw, CO to most, and in 1920 he opened Bigwin Inn, the largest hotel in the British Commonwealth. In an era that celebrated grandeur, Bigwin Inn was a monument to the age. Shaw took an innovative approach to constructing his hotel, poured concrete and asbestolate roofing, ensured it was virtually fireproof, a distinct departure from the all-wooden resorts common to the area. Shaw, phobic about fire, did not want to tempt fate with his landmark achievement. He liked the company of millionaires, and he respected their need for privacy, but he did not like his tolerance tested. Shaw demanded decorum of his guests. The story goes that when former Premier of Ontario Mitch Hepburn, a man Shaw admired but had never met, arrived inebriated at Bigwin one day, he got no further than the lobby. As Hepburn began hammering his fists on the front desk and demanding service, Shaw brusquely sent him back to the dock with all his luggage. He was equally demanding of his staff, who were obedient to his strict demands of quality and performance, always fearing his more popular expression: "You're fired." Meals in the dining room were theatrical events. A string of waitresses would appear with large trays held aloft until every table was attended, whereupon guests were served in unison.
It was the man that gave Bigwin such character. CO was as solid as the structure he built.
Shaw died in 1942, but Bigwin lived on for another quarter century on Lake of Bays. In the memory of those who stayed here, it remains the most stunning hotel ever to appear in Muskoka. That same year, Bigwin Inn went on the auction block, but garnered little interest. A disheartening end to one of Muskoka's most treasured hotels. It stands today, its future in limbo. As with Bigwin, most hotels reflected the character of their owners. George Martin of Wigwassan Lodge encouraged guests to have a spirited time during their stay. Meanwhile, veteran guests at the old Pinelands knew when owner John Jones strolled the veranda, pocket watch in hand, it was time to retire for the evening. At Cleveland's, Ted Wright, trying to maintain a degree of civility among his guests, promptly ordered a woman off the property for wearing a bikini. But the key to survival in the hotel business was adaptability. Come the 50s, life in Muskoka sped up. A younger clientele was being drawn to the resorts, and it was eager for fun. Days, as always, were filled with recreation. But during the big band era, in the evenings, there was only one place to be: Dunn's Pavilion. Entertainment became the draw. Dancing was the hook. Owner Jerry Dunn attracted the big names year after year. Names like Duke Ellington, the Dorsey brothers, Guy Lombardo, and Count Basie. But Dunn's wasn't the only place to go. Hotels also added dance halls in hopes of boosting income.
I used to dance 7 nights a week. If I wasn't dancing at Cleveland's House or the Royal, I'd be at the 21 Club. That used to be my specialty, dancing.
I can remember as a kid sitting on my grandfather's veranda hearing the big band music coming across the bay from Dunn's Dance Pavilion. I wanted to be there. There was something about that sound that was exciting.
The high times continued in Muskoka, and the spirit of summer carried on into the night. But it was night that often ushered in times of loss.
Fire was our biggest worry, absolutely. We never went to bed without wondering if we were going to wake up with the crackling of a fire.
Once fires catch, little can be done for these old wooden structures. The senseless torching of Beaumaris came at the hand of a young employee, Edward John Van Buren. He admitted he rose from bed around 2 a.m., went outside, took some papers into the ash house, and set fire to them. Whereupon he returned to bed until a fellow employee banged on the door and reported the hotel on fire. In this case, no lives were lost. However, the evening of August 18, 1923, would witness Muskoka's worst tragedy, as the Wawa Hotel on Lake of Bays burned to the ground. The fire started in the baggage room next to the elevator shaft. Sparks and flames climbed through the main tower and spread in all directions. Smoke billowed and filled the halls. The fire at Wawa was so bright you could pick up a quarter on the ground in Baysville. Somehow, the hotel lights remained on for 20 minutes, allowing many guests to escape. But after 35 minutes, the hotel was lost, and 11 women had perished. Other notable hotels suffered a similar fate. Rebuilding was rarely feasible, especially when other options were available. But many fell by the wayside, their owners unable to maintain these aging structures. The grandeur they once boasted, now lost. Do remain and continue to thrive. And at least one has risen from the ashes. Lakes, tucked in the brush, just back from the shore, are traces of this gracious past, of a history that is quietly slipping away. But for those who came to Muskoka to indulge themselves at one of the grand hotels, perhaps only for a summer, one enchanted summer, the memory will dwell forever.
Our story begins in the central region of the province of Ontario, in what has been called the playground of Canada. The District of Muskoka, a land of hills and rocks and trees and lakes, set amid the rugged grandeur of the Canadian Shield. These lakes, once the home of the Indian, the fur trader, the logger, and the settler, are now the summer haven for thousands of tourists and cottagers every year. Some families have been coming to this region from the cities of central Canada and the United States for 3 or 4 generations. There are 3 important towns in the Muskoka district. Huntsville, the focal point for North Muskoka. Bracebridge, the district seat. And Gravenhurst, gateway to the Muskoka Lakes. A pleasant little community of about 4,000 people, Gravenhurst combines good shopping and fine scenic attractions, with excellent links to Toronto and the cities of the South by road and rail. Muskoka Bay, the harbor of Gravenhurst, is now the home of the outboard motorboat, the inboard, and the sailboat. It is also the home of a very different type of vessel, the Royal Mail steamship Segwun, a resident passenger ship since 1887. The Segwun is now unique. Named from an Ojibwe word meaning springtime, she is now the oldest steamship in North America, and also the only ship of her kind still afloat and operating in Canada. She is one of the few remaining iron-hulled ships in the world, and the last survivor of what was once the largest fleet of Royal Mail steamships in the world. Today, the Segwun is alone on the Muskoka Lakes. Once, she was just one of several fine steamers that were the pride of the North, the fleet of the Muskoka Lakes Navigation Company, which served the district faithfully for 92 years. In 1949, when this film was taken, the company had 5 steamers in service. At one time, it had 10. The fleet began modestly with one small paddle-wheel steamer in 1866. And from that beginning, it grew steadily into the largest line of its kind in Canada. For 3/4 of a century, the lake steamers were the economic lifeline of the Muskoka district. To understand what the steamers meant to this region once, we must look back through the mists of time. To the mid-19th century, when the Muskoka district was no more than a vast Indian hunting ground, visited occasionally by a few trappers and fur traders. It might have remained so indefinitely, except that by 1850, the good farming lands of southern Ontario had already been taken up. Since the CPR had not yet been built and the prairies were still out of reach, the only lands still available at the time were the forested hills of the north within the Canadian Shield. Consequently, the Canadian government, unaware of the true nature of the Shield country, decided to open up the northern lands by building new colonization roads and offering free lands to settlers. It proved, in the main, a tragic mistake. Just to get to Muskoka, one had to take a train from Toronto to Barrie, then board a steamboat on Lake Simcoe for Orillia. Catch another small steamer on Lake Couchiching for Washego, and try to find a wagon team to proceed up the Muskoka Road, which started at Washego and meandered north to Gravenhurst, Bracebridge, and eventually Huntsville and Lake Nipissing. The early roads usually left a lot to be desired, so much so that it often took 4 hours to move a loaded wagon 15 miles. Once they arrived, the new settlers had to cope with hardship, isolation, loneliness, mosquitoes, black flies, forest fires, and bitterly cold winters, sometimes falling to 40 below. Worse still, though a few were lucky enough to find arable soil on their lots, for most it was a different story, and today the district abounds with abandoned lots and clearings, silently reverting to the bush and bearing mute testimony to broken dreams. Organized transport facilities initially did not exist, and sometimes settlers had to walk 40 or 50 miles, as far as Orillia or even Barrie, just to mail a letter or collect a barrel of flour to feed their families. No wonder many of them soon became discouraged and left. Matters were improved immensely during the fall of 1865, when Mr. A.P. Coburn, a venturesome merchant from Victoria County, paid a visit to Muskoka and immediately grasped its potential. By the spring of 1866, Mr. Coburn built a large new store in the tiny hamlet of Gravenhurst and founded a stage service south to the steamboat landing at Washego. He also constructed an 80-foot paddle wheel steamboat near this site on Muskoka Bay to ply on Lake Muskoka. The lumber used in the boat all had to be whipsawn, since there were still no sawmills in the area. She was called the Winona, meaning firstborn. She was a small, flat-bottomed wood burner, capable of speeds of about 10 miles an hour. She was not a very elegant craft, but she was a godsend to the struggling settlers, for whom she transported freight, passengers, and mail for 20 years to all parts of Lake Muskoka. Cement, lumber, groceries, and cattle might all be part of a day's haul. She also towed logs and scows, and occasionally ran excursion cruises. At first, the vessel often ran aground and failed to make money. But by 1868, business improved, and she was soon joined by other steamers, such as the Little Wabbamick, the graceful Nipissing, and the sturdy little Simcoe. Meanwhile, the government lent a hand by building a lock on the Indian River at the rising village of Port Carling in 1871. At the same time, a short canal was opened at the neighboring village of Port Sandfield. These two improvements allowed the steamers to extend their routes further north, into Lake Rosseau, as far as Rosseau Village, and to Lake Joseph, up to the new terminus at Port Coburn, a total distance of 45 miles, right through the heart of the district. As roads and settlements continued to advance, steamboats also began to ply on the North Muskoka lakes, from Port Sydney on Mary Lake to Huntsville and beyond, starting in 1877. And on the Lake of Bays, from Baysville to Dwight and Dorset, starting in 1878. Meanwhile, the Muskoka district got another big boost. The Northern Railway of Canada was starting to follow settlers and lumbermen north. From Barrie on Lake Simcoe, the line was gradually being extended up the lake. On to Orillia in 1872. Thence up to Lake Couchiching, and north to Washego in 1873. Slowly, the rails crept northwards. At last, the line reached Gravenhurst, where it finally terminated at Muskoka Wharf Station on Muskoka Bay by the winter of 1875. Muskoka Wharf at once became the new transshipping depot from the trains to the lake steamers. For the next 77 years, tons of freight and thousands of passengers were transferred from trains to steamers and back again. And in time, new steamers were built to cope with the rush, including the Rosseau, a large passenger tug, the sturdy Muskoka, a powerful all-purpose steamer, the speedy Canoe, meaning pickerel, and the ornate little Oriole. By now, Mr. Coburn's line had blossomed into the Muskoka Navigation Company, the most successful inland boat line in all of Canada. Then, a setback occurred. In August 1886, the line lost its flagship, the Nipissing, which was destroyed by fire while docked overnight at Port Coburn on Lake Joseph, to be replaced by a new Nipissing, which was built at the Clyde shipyards in Scotland in 1887. Immediately after the railway reached the Muskoka Lakes, in marched the lumber trade, catering to the almost insatiable demand of the British market for square timber and the American demand for sawn lumber. The lumber companies lost little time invading the Muskoka pineries, building mills and setting up bush camps, now that the region was within easy access of Toronto. Soon, hundreds of settlers began working part-time for the lumber companies for a little extra cash. Within just a few years, a total of 17 sawmills and shingle mills were built at Gravenhurst, which soon became known as the Sawdust City. Over 50 million board feet of sawn lumber left Gravenhurst in 1883 alone, more than any other town in Ontario next to Ottawa. Until the turn of the century, the timber trade was king in Muskoka. All this provided important new work for the lake steamers. Nearly 35 steam tugs and scow boats were built after 1875 to tow booms of logs to the sawmills and scow loads of supplies and provisions up the lakes to the lumber camps. Some of these vessels included squat, ungainly towboats known as alligators or warping tugs, like this specimen preserved in Algonquin Park. Alligators were so called because they were amphibious and could actually winch themselves ashore from one lake to another. And they did their towing by winching their toes along with a cable and anchoring themselves to the bottom of the lakes. For decades, the alligator was a familiar sight in Muskoka. When tanneries were built at Bracebridge and Huntsville, steamers were also used to haul in scow loads of tan bark to the plants. But the logs were often a menace to navigation, and sometimes a passenger ship had to run the risk of breaking a propeller while trying to force its way through the logs. Though lumbering was big business in Muskoka until the 1920s, there was still room for tourists as well. Small parties of campers and sportsmen began visiting Muskoka as early as 1860 to hunt and fish and generally get back to nature. 10 years later, in 1870, the district's first summer resort hotel was built at this site, where Rosseau Village now stands. Owned by an eccentric American gentleman named William Pratt, the hotel was officially called the Rosseau House, but was usually known as Pratt's Hotel. The first wilderness resort to be built anywhere in Canada, the Rosseau House commanded a lovely view from its lofty hilltop overlooking Lake Rosseau. Though it stood for just 13 years, Pratt's Hotel established a whole new trend in summer vacationing and became the forerunner of dozens of fine hotels built later in the district. In 1872, a second hotel, the Summit House, was built at this site, at the Steamboat Wharf at Port Coburn, at the head of Lake Joseph. For many years, these two resorts were the only ones on the Muskoka Lakes. However, by the 1880s and 90s, as more and more tourists began discovering Muskoka, a rush of new resorts followed. At such places as Beaumaris, on Lake Muskoka, Windermere, on Lake Rosseau, Cleveland's House and Minette on western Lake Rosseau, Prospect House at Port Sandfield, Elgin House on Lake Joseph, and many others as well. Naturally, all the resorts became calling places for the lake steamers. In 1902, the Muskoka Lakes Navigation Company built its own giant resort hotel, the Royal Muskoka Hotel on Lake Rosseau. Once the largest summer hotel in all of Canada, the Royal Muskoka was a magnificent place with its own golf course and capable of taking 350 guests. Following the new resorts came private summer cottages and boathouses. many of them reflecting the wealth of their owners. With them came the ultimate prestige item, the private steam yacht, some of which were up to 70 feet in length. Most had a uniformed captain and engineer to run them. Besides the yachts, there were dozens of small steam launches as well. As more and more tourists kept flocking to Muskoka every summer, the Muskoka Navigation Company had to build more and more steamers to cope with the crowds. In 1893, the elegant big steamer Medora was launched at Gravenhurst, to be followed by the Amick, a small auxiliary steamer, and the handsome little Islander, long a favorite on the Muskoka lakes. Still, business grew, and in 1906 and 1907, two majestic new steel-hulled palace steamers were built. The Sagamo, or Big Chief, and her smaller running mate, the Cherokee. The proud fleet now numbered 10 steamships, collectively capable of taking about 2,400 passengers at a time. The Grand Trunk Railway, which had absorbed the old Northern Railway, now had to send up to 5 express trains a day from Toronto to Gravenhurst to cope with the rush. As we can see from this actual old news film taken at Muskoka Wharf in 1903. By now, the resort and steamship eras were at their height, with not a cloud in the sky except... What kind of a contraption is that? Some steamers were even fitted out to take food and provisions around the lakes to sell to cottagers and campers. Though a few of these supply boats were run by local farmers, most were operated by merchants from the towns. From Bala came the city of Bala. From Milford Bay, the Alporto. From Rosseau, the Constance. And from Port Carling, the Mink and the New Minko. There were others as well. The boats would stock up every morning to begin their rounds, touring the lakes and calling on their customers. For many a year, the supply steamer was always a welcome sight. Despite the disruptions of the war years, the Muskoka steamers carried on. After the war, things seemed to return to normal. The lordly Sagamo continued to ply north from Gravenhurst every day. Connecting with her sister ships at Beaumaris and Port Carling. In 1925, the steamer Segwun, rebuilt from the old steamer Nipissing, was added to the fleet. And in 1927, the Navigation Company acquired its last steamer, the Wyoming, meaning water lily, to ply mostly on Lake Joseph. It was much the same on the North Muskoka lakes, where new resorts were sprouting, and Captain George Marsh was consolidating the Huntsville and Lake of Bays Navigation Company. Here, in 1930, the Muskoka Express arrives in Huntsville Station to connect with the steamers Algonquin and Ramona of the Huntsville Navigation Company. Now entering Fairy Lake. And on to Deerhurst Inn, before proceeding to the Portage. Here, a tiny railway shuttles back and forth across the 1-mile divide between Peninsula Lake and the Lake of Bays, where the steamers Iroquois and Mohawk Belle await us. All aboard the good ship Iroquois for the finest resort of all, fabulous Bigwin Inn. Founded in 1920, Bigwin Inn was the largest of all the Muskoka resorts. could take up to 700 guests. Some visitors opt to take the ferry to Bigwin. There was nothing quite like Bigwin Inn. And here's the man who built it, Mr. C.O. Shaw, president of the Huntsville Navigation Company. During the 1920s, the Muskoka Navigation Company inaugurated one of North America's foremost tourist attractions, the 100-mile cruise. The main cruise from Gravenhurst was conducted by the flagship Sagamo, the Big Chief. The Medora, or the Cherokee, usually sailed from the port of Rosseau. While the Segwun usually conducted the cruise from Bracebridge. Trains on the CPR ran daily from Toronto to the wharf station at Bala. There to connect with the little steamer Islander. While the Onyx sailed from Torrance. Meanwhile, the Wyoming met the CN trains at Barnesdale or Lake Joseph Station. Every ship had its own routes and schedules. By train and car they came, bound for Muskoka. Let us join the throngs of happy people flocking to Muskoka Wharf for a cruise on the Sagamo. It's all aboard now. As we leave Muskoka Wharf. And proceed up Muskoka Bay. Past the old Gravenhurst Sanatorium, or TB Hospital. To the Narrows, the channel leading to the main portion of Lake Muskoka. With its guardian lighthouse, built in 1905. On we go, north on Lake Muskoka, to our first stop, Glen Echo Lodge on Taylor Island. Then, on to Walker's Point. Past the palatial summer residences of Millionaire's Row. to the village of Beaumaris, where we meet the Segwun. For the usual exchange of passengers. And here comes the Islander, in from Bala. Farewell now. And on we go, to call it Milford Manor. Then on to the Seven Sisters Islands. And Port Keewatin. Now passing One Tree Island. And approaching the Indian River. A lovely 3-mile stream. Now entering Foreman's Narrows. And coming up to Port Carling, the hub of the lakes. Here's the Cherokee waiting her turn to lock through. There's the Amik from Lake Joseph. The Sakamo lots through now. As we leave Port Carling and continue up the river and out onto Lake Rosseau, setting our course for Windermere, one of the loveliest resort villages in Muskoka. Northbound again to Wigwassan Lodge on Tobin Island for another stop. Now passing Ross Trevor Lodge. And the Royal Muskoka Hotel, the largest on the lakes. Westbound now, that's the little church of St. John the Baptist at Marinus. And the Queen Victoria Rock, where you can see the profile of the Queen herself. Passing Painton House. And over to Cleveland's House, one of Muskoka's most popular resorts. Farewell now to Cleveland's, as we continue southbound to Woodington House, one of the oldest on Lake Rosseau. And onward to the charming village of Port Sandfield. We have now reached the gateway to Lake Joseph, which beckons ahead of us. There's Pinelands Lodge with its lovely beach. The stately Elgin House. And the Glen Home Hotel. And beautiful Sherwood Inn. Lunchtime now. Northbound still, until we arrive at the Natural Park on Little Lake Joseph. Here, we have time to stretch and take a little stroll. Up to Mirror Lake. Is there a finer view in all of Canada? Time to return now. And now for the return trip. Over to Lake Joseph Station to connect with the afternoon train. And now southbound. To Glen Home and the Elgin House. And back to Port Sandfield and Lake Rosseau. The Big Chief returns to the Indian River. Back to Port Carling. Here comes the Cherokee, back from Gravenhurst. Leaving Port Carling now. And moving downriver. And back to Lake Muskoka. Another call at Beaumaris to meet the Segwun. And now it's homeward bound. And back to Muskoka Wharf. A perfect end to a perfect day. Every day they ply. The Cherokee has proceeded south from Rosseau. To call at Wigwassan and other stops. Then on to the Indian River. And Port Carling. On to Beaumaris and Muskoka Wharf to meet the noon train. Returning northward. While Bracebridge passengers board the Islander. To make the Cherokee in mid-lake. Here she comes now. Farewell, Islander. Returning northwards and back to Port Carling. Continuing upstream and, uh-oh, here comes the sag. Completing her rounds before returning to Rosseau for the night. Every ship does her share. Here, the Segwun connects at Beaumaris. To run to the ports of call on western Lake Muskoka. Passing the railway spring bridge at Bala Park. And on to Bala. Returning now to the Bala Park Bridge. And back to Beaumaris to meet the flagship. It was much the same at Huntsville and the Lake of Bays. Twice a day, the steamer Iroquois of the Huntsville Navigation Company would leave Dorset for Bigwin Inn and other stops. Then proceed to South Portage. To connect with the Little Portage Flyer. Which takes us over the divide and back to Peninsula Lake. Now going through the canal back to Ferry Lake. And crossing Ferry Lake and entering the Vernon River. Back to Huntsville. Meanwhile, the Niska and her scow are busy laying buoys on the Indian River. While a dredge is at work deepening the channel at Port Sandfield. And here, an oil tanker delivers fuel to a cottage. Season's end for the Sagamo was usually on Labor Day. Which always called for a nostalgic send-off at Port Carling. Goodbye, Big Chief. Until next year. Gradually, the unrelenting trends of the times began to catch up with the Muskoka Lake steamers. Highways were being paved by the 1930s, and people could now reach the resorts by car. In 1930, the Great Depression dealt a devastating blow to the Muskoka resorts. Getting around the lakes was becoming a little easier. Soon, everyone had a motorboat. Gradually, the lake steamers became redundant. As one ship after another was withdrawn from service. In 1931, the Medora was laid up, never to sail again. In 1934, the small steamer Wyoming was lost in a freak storm on northern Lake Muskoka for the loss of 3 lives. The outbreak of war in 1939 gave the boats a short reprieve, when gasoline was rationed and overseas travel became dangerous. But after the war, business again began to decline. The little steamer Amek stopped running in 1949. Soon to be followed by the Islander. And the Cherokee. the last of the Huntsville steamers tied up for good in 1952, making way for a diesel bus boat to connect with the Portage Railway. The little railway, the shortest in the world, itself disappeared after 1959. By the mid-50s, the Sagamo and the Segwun were the only inland excursion steamers still operating in Canada. It was now the Segwun that connected with the Sagamo at Port Carling. But finally, the odds became too great. And when the Sagamo tied up for the last time on Labor Day, 1958, a glorious tradition spanning 92 years came to an end. Where are all the steamers today? All gone. Only a few pathetic relics remain. The day of the steamboat seemed to be over. And yet, the proud era of steam did not die out entirely. A few small steam launches still putter about on the lakes, lovingly restored by their owners. And one passenger ship still survived. The Segwun, which was saved from the scrapyards and turned into a floating marine museum by the town of Gravenhurst in 1962. Later, when it became clear that the old ship badly needed a refit to assure her continued survival, a campaign was launched in 1969 to bring her back to full operating condition. This gave rise to the Muskoka Steamship and Historical Society, which bought the vessel in 1973. Sponsored by the Ontario Road Builders Association as a goodwill project, the Society raised the necessary funds to dry dock and restore the Segwun in July of 1973. It was a long, slow, often frustrating job. One bright spot was the triumphal relaunching of the vessel with a new steel hull in 1974. With Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau to do the honors. At least 6,000 people were on hand to witness the event. But the follow-up was an anticlimax. Costs kept going up, and money kept running short. But finally, after a 10-year effort, the last of Canada's inland passenger steamships was able to complete her sea trials and re-enter service in 1981.
The lakes of Muskoka are rugged and wide, renowned for their beautiful shores. But their bays and their islands drive steamboat men mad with their rocks and their channels galore. And once a proud fleet sailed these waters so deep, they were captained by hard-bitten men. Now the rest of the fleet are all lost or asleep, but the Segwun is steaming again. The Segwun is steaming again. The Segwun is steaming again. Come and spread the glad news of the 100-mile cruise, for the Segwun is steaming again.
Today, the Segwun is back where she belongs, taking passengers on sightseeing cruises on the lakes that have known her so well.
When they built her, they called her the Nipissing too. From the shipyards of Glasgow she came. After 40 years' service, they built her anew, and they gave her her present proud name. She sailed as the Segwun for 33 years, and sat on the dock 24. The Ontario road builders fitted her out, and the Segwun is steaming once more. The Segwun is steaming again. The Segwun is steaming again. Come and spread the glad news of the 100-mile cruise, for the Segwun is steaming again.
She is now the queen of the Muskoka Lakes and one of Ontario's greatest tourist attractions.
She's 260 tons with a fresh coat of paint. She's completely refitted throughout. When she raced with the flagship, they made her hold back. She's a speedy wee craft without doubt. She's got double screws, she can turn in her tracks, or reverse to the wind without fear. That's good honest coal smoke that pours from her stack. There's no stinking old diesel fuel here. The Segwun is steaming again. The Segwun is steaming again. Come and spread the glad news of the 100-mile cruise, for the Segwun is steaming again.
May there never be an end to the day of the steamboat.
When the crazy old city has your psyche a wreck, and you can't see the woods for the trees, head up to Muskoka and